1980s, we have one of the companions from the show that worked opposite Peter Davison. He is now a zoologist and a film producer, does many nature films. And so I'd like to bring out Mr. Mark Strickson, Turlo, from Doctor Who.
Hi guys. Well, it's very nice to be here. And if anybody's come as further than me, they've come from Antarctica. Because I'm currently working in New Zealand, and I'm at the bottom of the South Island in a place called Dunedin. And it literally is next stop Antarctica. There was snow on the hills when I left. So, can anybody beat that? Anybody come any further? We just might learn that somebody has come from Antarctica. No. I don't know what I'm quite supposed to do today. Got any clues? What do other people do? I think I should tell you what I've been doing first of all, and then you can ask some questions. So, I finished on Doctor Who, and I worked as an actor for about the next 4 years in all sorts of things for the BBC. And then I decided I wanted to save the world. Yeah, it's a quite ambitious project. And I actually realised that I totally wanted to change direction. So I decided I wanted to do a zoology degree. I realised that if I stayed in England, I would get diverted by acting. So my wife at the time, Julie, who was also an actress, and was also in Doctor Who actually. I can't remember what the name of the episodes she was in.
Paradise Towers.
Oh well, thank you. Don't know anything about Doctor Who, never asked anybody who was in it. Yeah. So off we went to Australia, and I did a zoology degree, she did a sort of zoology anthropology degree. She's now got her doctorate and is still at the same university teaching. I, after 4 years, and I taught theatre studies as well, went back to the UK, and I sat in a little room in West Hampstead and I wrote 3 films about animals. One was on kangaroos, one was on snakes, and one was on flying, I called it the flying chipolatas. It was actually about big fat moths. Okay? But one of these films was set in Australia, and it was called The 10 Deadliest Snakes in the World. And I then sent off these films out to film companies in the UK, and a company called Partridge Films decided they wanted to employ me. So they said, look, we can pay you for your ideas, or we'll pay you a pittance to direct the films. So I said, right, pay me a pittance to direct the films, you've got to start somewhere. By this time I was 35, I think, 36, so it was a bit hard starting all over again. But I was very lucky. I sent off to zoos and universities and places in Australia. Had they got anybody who was a good snake handler? And a lady called Terry Irwin sent a tape in of her husband, Steve. And that was Steve's first film. So me and my team at Partridge, one of our things we did was we discovered Steve Irwin. So there we are, who of course has tragically died. What can I say about that? It was an absolute tragic accident. I think that's a thing people should know. It's a very, very common injury. It's the most common injury for scuba divers on reefs is to get a hit from a stingray. It is incredibly rare to die from it. I think only 3 people have died in the last 10 years. One was a child, and another person was a man who had exactly the same injury as Steve and got it through his heart. So, yeah. I just gave a little interview for Reuters on the day it happened, and I said that if Steve did only one good thing in his life, it was that he inspired millions of children, across the world to be interested in animals and care about nature, which I think is a pretty good thing to do with your life. Which essentially is, I guess, what I've been doing with my life. It's taken me to amazing places, the jungles of Sumatra. I've got in ropey old helicopters into Sierra Leone just after the war, all sorts of things. I have had the most amazing 11 or 12 years. I've had malaria twice. I've had pneumonia from exhaustion last year. And what am I doing at the moment? Well, I was actually quite ill by the end of last year. I just finished doing a big series for Animal Planet called the Lifeline series, where we took $10,000 into really remote locations and saw what it could do for animals. That was fantastic, but it absolutely knackered me. I fell off a mountain in Sumatra whilst I was doing that, which didn't help. It is quite tough. You do have to be very fit to do the job. I think people don't quite realise how remote some of these places are we work in. I'll tell you, this is a Doctor Who story. I haven't done many conventions in many years, but one of the last ones I did was Chicago. And so one of you guys have it must have been about 8 years ago, I think, 7 years ago, 8 years ago. And I was at the time filming lizards in a place called Irian Jaya, which is, if you know where Australia is, there's New Guinea above that, and then there's this island. New Guinea's in 2 bits. There's Irian Jaya on the west side, the left-hand side, if you're looking at the map, and there's New Guinea, Papua New Guinea on the right-hand side. I was in one of the most remote places in the world. I was on the islands off the west side, filming these lizards called tree crocodiles, which leap out of the trees onto their prey. They're the longest lizard in the world. We'd been there about 4 months. And I was running late to get to the Doctor Who convention in Chicago. And it literally took me 13 hours by dugout canoe, 3 plane hops across to get out to Jakarta, I think. I then went straight the way through to Bristol in the UK. I got in a car and drove down with my film rushes to Bristol, by which time I had to just drive straight back. I didn't even have time for a shower. I went back and I flew to Chicago. When I got to Chicago, I don't think I was on the same planet as the rest of humanity. And I got to my hotel room and I went into such a deep sleep they couldn't wake me up. And apparently somebody came to the hotel room and they were shaking me. And they were worried that I was ill. And I was saying, a strange mix of zoology and Doctor Who. I was shouting, for God's sake, stabilise the animals. And I have no memory of this at all. And there's a picture, there was a sponsors evening, and there was a picture of everybody, all the guests, and there's somebody there holding my picture, because I'm unconscious in my room from fatigue. So you have great times if you make films about animals, but be prepared for a bit of a rocky ride sometimes. Somebody asked me a question, and then otherwise I'll just natter, forever, and I'll never get around to anything to do with Doctor Who. Yes. Do you want to hold this?
Are they still eating people's brains down there?
Are they still eating people's brains? Well, they are still cannibals. It's quite interesting. On the beach next to where we were filming, there were sea pirates. And they did really look like real pirates. They didn't look anything like the local people. I'm talking about New Guinea here, Irian Jaya. They were gorgeous looking. They looked a lot healthier than the local people. And I'll explain about the cannibalism for you. These guys had long black hair, earrings, and they used to go off and they'd go out to sea, and presumably they used to kill people on yachts and come back again. So they were my next door neighbours. I paid them to look out for lizards, and they were always very pleasant to me, but they were pretty rough. If you got on the wrong side of them, I'm sure. Why there are cannibals there still, and they probably are still in remote places. One reason is there's very little food. People forget this about some places in the world. If you look at the tribes in that part of the world, the ones who live on the coastline are the weakest ones, and the ones who live in the mountains are the strongest ones, because there's terrible malaria on the coast. The life expectancy where I was working was about 40. I didn't meet anybody over 38 years old. So that's, they're born with malaria. One of my crew got malaria. I didn't get malaria that time. And basically, it's a waste of food. When they fight each other, the tribes, yes, if you defeat people and you kill them, you eat them, because there's sod all to eat around there. So we think of cannibalism as something that, something weird, but actually it's a pretty natural thing in that part of the world. But they don't go around killing people for pleasure. It's always as a result of a war. And it rarely happens now, but I'm sure it does in remote places. Yeah. That was one about cannibals, gosh. Yes. All right, somebody one day asked me a question about Doctor Who. What the lady said was, I just did this series where you took $10,000 into places. Right, well in Sierra Leone, we took it into a chimp sanctuary. Chimps are traded in Sierra Leone, both for meat and for the pet trade. and it's a pretty desperate situation. So we took $10,000 into there. And in Sierra Leone, $10,000 goes a hell of a long way. If I tell you that they had only 4 national parks rangers for the whole country, and it's a huge country, and those national park rangers had a Land Rover which only had 2 wheels. So first thing I was able to do by just reaching into my back pocket and going into my emergency US dollar stash was actually buy some wheels for the only Land Rover, for the only rangers in the whole country. And we took them for the first time since the war out to the only national park, where we of course discovered that all the rebels had killed all the wildlife, which is usually what happens to wildlife in wars. They suffer just as badly as the humans. And it was a real eye-opener. I think one of the things that my life in the last 10, 11 years has shown me is just how poor a lot of people in the world are. We do forget about it. And to see it firsthand is quite a shock. As a result of that film, Johnny Rotten, who was lead singer of the Sex Pistols, a very famous punk rock band in England, he was on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, and he gave his £100,000, which you get for appearing on that programme, to that sanctuary in Sierra Leone, which was absolutely fabulous and has completely changed their lives out there. So that was one. We had to do one in every territory run by Animal Planet. So in Brazil, we did one about the illegal trade in animals in Brazil, and we took the money went to set up the first organisation which was going to try and get animals back to where they'd come from the cities. My cameraman on that occasion, I'll tell you a story about that one. We went in undercover into a market in Sao Paulo. Sao Paulo is one of the roughest cities in the world, and the roughest regions of Sao Paulo have to be seen to be believed. And we went in undercover, and we had our cameras in bags, so that when the police came in, running in with their guns into the market, we would be able to get our cameras out and start filming. When the police ran in, that was all well and good. When they came in, all the guys with the animals started putting their animals in their bags. My main cameraman tried to get his camera out of his bag, and the police thought he was somebody putting an animal in his bag. So here I am making a television program, and I turn around, the first thing I see is my cameraman with a gun to his head on the floor, unable to film, and I'm going, no, with the television people, no, what's he? No. So yes, that was another fairly hairy moment, I have to say. So that's the sort of places we were going into. Pretty tough places, a lot of them. It's called the Lifeline series. Okay. Just whilst I'll come to you in a minute. Just whilst I remember, if you want to know what I've just been doing, if you watch Animal Planet, I think 8 o'clock Saturday nights at the moment, you'll see a program called Up Close and Dangerous, which is one of mine. I think it runs until Christmas at 8 o'clock at night, and it might be Tuesday nights as well. So it's Saturdays or Tuesdays. Certainly been showing Saturday night. That's about when really weird things happen on natural history shoots. They almost pulled the series because of what happened to Steve Irwin. But they decided not to in the end, because actually the series it's a way in to tell you why animals sometimes do strange things. So you learn a lot about the animal, but there's always this incredible footage of something that's happened to a wildlife cameraman or woman as they've been filming. So for example, there's a guy filming seals off Florida, and an elephant seal pokes its head over this rock. Now, elephant seals are about as big as from here to the end of the stage. They shouldn't be in shallow water. It shouldn't have been anywhere near there. And then it does an even more surprising thing. It comes over and it takes the diver's head in its mouth. And it proceeds to do this for about half an hour and play with the diver. And so you learn you learn why this happens, and it's that young seals do this. They're just sort of like playing with each other, and there was absolutely nothing the diver could have done. And eventually it's got half of his body in its mouth, you know, and it's pretty frightening stuff. But, you know, little things like that, so there's some good moments in it, I can tell you. Sorry, yes?
Have you had any time to see the new Doctor Who episode?
Have I had any time to see the new Doctor Who episode? You know, I haven't had much time to see them. One reason is because before I was in New Zealand, I was editing out of Sydney, and everything gets to Australia and New Zealand much later than it gets to anywhere else. But having said that, I was back in the UK, about a year ago, sort of August, September, October, and I saw 2 of the episodes then. And I went to see my parents, and my mother said, have you seen any of the new Doctor Who's, Mark? And I said, no, I hadn't at the time, I said, no, I hadn't. And she said, oh, yeah, you must watch them, they're much better than when you were in it. So being a television producer, I can now tell you that's because they spend a lot more money on them. And the actors get paid a lot more too. Not that I'm bitter about it. Times have changed. It's great to see. I mean, I saw particularly the first one I saw was the one with Simon Calloway. It's set in Wales in the funeral parlour there, and I thought it was fabulous. I thought they'd done a great job. Written by Mark Gattis, who's a mate of mine, and they've got some fabulous writers on the series now as well. I think we did a pretty good job for the money we had when I was in it. And looking back on them, when I was in them, I thought they were terrible. Because you do think that. It's part of being... in my job, now when I make a film, I don't want to look at it immediately because I can always see the faults in it, you know? And when you're there and you know the limited time you have and the rehearsal time and all those sorts of things, then you look at it and you think, oh, you know, things like I remember Janet and Peter and I can't even remember what episode this was, right? But we were in this cave in the studio in the BBC. We're supposed to be in this cave. So we're supposed to run out and there's supposed to be an explosion, right? And we run out and this cannon fires bits of polystyrene rock in front of us. So that it looks as if there's an explosion on the camera, right? But there's no sound. So Peter and Janet and I run out and we go... We sort of walk off, and then we walk back in the cave to do it again. And the production manager goes, that's fine, on we go. And Peter says, oh, sorry, but we didn't react. It'll look all right, we'll just lay some sound over it, we haven't got time. So on you go. And that was I tell a story about a guy called Jeff Rawl, who was, I can't remember any of the names of the characters anymore, you'll have to forgive me, I'm very old. But he was playing some king or something, and I said to Jeff, I said, now whatever happens, Jeff, trust me, they never stop in a Doctor Who studio. You only get one take at it. You just never assume you're going to get a second take. Just plough on. So Jeff walks down this set, and he's got all these people behind him, and he actually goes through the step. One of the steps breaks. He's walking down, and he goes that, and he keeps walking. And he carries on with the scene. So we finish the scene, and the production manager goes, on we go! And Jeff says, oh, excuse me, can I talk to the box? Because you have a box where the producer is. John Nathan Turner was up in the top. So Johnny said, oh, I don't know if anybody noticed, but I fell through the set in that last scene. And John said, yeah, we noticed, it'll look fine, don't worry. You know? I mean, what can you say? So, now when I watch them, I think they're great. I think they're rather good. And it doesn't bother me. But watching them at the time was just so painful. You wanted another go at it, you know, and you just wanted... Every time I used to walk into the TARDIS, I'm sure they had different people putting on the set, because it never looked the same. The angles on the bits going around the back, it was never the same. And bits of it wouldn't work and bits of it would work. It was a very strange experience. I'll tell you a story about that. I was quite naughty when I was in Doctor Who. I was already quite an experienced television actor. I'd been on a soap opera called Angels, where I played a broomy ambulanceman called Terry. And I had a girlfriend called Alison, and I ate a lot of cheese on toast, and used to run for the ambulance. It was really tedious. You spend 3 years at RADA, and you just sort of end up having scenes where you're saying, "We'd ought to go out for a coffee, Alison, tonight." You know, it just is not quite what you expected. So it was a great relief to go on Doctor Who. I can't remember. I always forget what I'm talking about. Now, what I was talking about was that I had actually done quite a lot of television. So I knew a few tricks of the trade. And I don't know whether you watch Peter. Peter Davison, who's the Doctor. He's quite a technical actor as well. you know, he's very rehearsed. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's great to work with. But as Turbo, I sort of felt sometimes I wasn't getting enough screen time, I guess. It's a battle for the assistants, you know. You've got the Doctor. I mean, the show's called Doctor Who, isn't it? You know, let's get real here. It's not about the assistants, all right? So you've got a problem fighting for your camera time. So I used to do things like ask questions in a certain way. If the assistant always has to ask, "What's that, Doctor?" And you spend your life going, "What's that, Doctor?" Right? I never used to say, "What's that, Doctor?" I used to imply I had a brain, which was new for an assistant on Doctor Who. I used to go, "What's that, Doctor?" As if I knew what it was. Not asking him, as if I wanted him to confirm it. So if you're really into Doctor Who, you know, the new type Doctor Who, you watch my episodes again. I never ever ask the Doctor a question. I always imply I know the answer. And I was always quite busy. Woe betide you if you upset me in the rehearsal room, because I would stand behind you on shot and I would play with the TARDIS in the background. I'd just stand there going, knowing that when the sound was laid on, they'd have to lay sound over it. So the poor actor who's annoying me at coffee, doing his big speech, and you've got going on in the background. There are lots of tricks you can do, I can tell you. Yeah, a question.
By the time you got on it was an institution. Did you feel like, oh good, I got a part, or oh my god, I can't believe I'm on Doctor Who?
When I got onto Doctor Who, as the gentleman said, it's like an institution. So did I feel, oh good, I got on Doctor Who, or oh my goodness, I got into this institution, you know. Well, Doctor Who, when I first went onto it, wasn't. I mean, it was big. It was an institution. I'd watched it when I was a child, but it wasn't. It was just another program the BBC made, and also there wasn't this cult of celebrity that we now have. Actors were just actors in those days. I mean, nobody took any notice of you in the street. It was just a job you did. We didn't have all those magazines like Hello magazine. This is all a completely new thing. And I was used to, in fact, I was probably more recognised from being on the soap opera than I was in Doctor Who. But the problem with Doctor Who came that they looked at me and they looked at Peter Davison and they thought in long shot we would look identical. Because actually Peter and I are quite similar looking for the camera. So John Nathan Turner came to me and he said, "Got an idea for you, Mark. How about having all your hair cut off?" And I said, "No." Not least because as an actor, you don't know how long you're going to run in the series, and it takes a long time for your hair to grow back. But if you've got no hair, it's not great for getting other parts. So they said, "Okay, well, how about we cut it short and we dye it bright red?" I said, "That's all right, that's fine, right?" So I said, "So long as I can wash the dye out. If you're going to dye it this strange colour, I don't want it to be that permanently. I just want it to be put in for the studios and then I can wash it out." They said, "That's no problem at all. We have the technology." Well, they didn't have the technology. Not only was it in the early days of the celebrity cult, it was in the early days of hair dye, I think. Basically, they put this dye in. I had a red pillow for about 3 years. It just used to cut out on my clothes. It was just disgusting, and it was bright metallic red. And as a result, I was so recognisable in the street. I was living on a boat at the time on the Grand Union Canal just south of London, and I'd cycle back across the park and the kids would go, "Hey Turbo! How you going, Turbo?" And you know, I'd go to the supermarket and children would run screaming away from me. It's not a joke. So yeah, that was my experience of being in the public eye. But the weirdest thing was when we came to America the first time. Because I was told by John that I would have to go to the States and do appearances. Now, again, I fly all over the world at the moment, and you get used to it these days. But it wasn't a thing that you did that normally in those days. And I remember the first time we flew into Chicago. I'd never been to the States before, neither had Patrick Troughton, who I don't know how old he must have been then, but he certainly wasn't young. And Patrick and I got to Chicago, and we sat in the back of this car, and we drove into Chicago at night, and it is the most stunning city. You know, there's wonderful lit up at night, the skyscrapers, and it just looks like the America you've seen on the movies. And it was like, being American, you wouldn't know this, but when you come to America, not being American, it's like stepping into the movies. We're very, very familiar with your taxis, all the sounds of America, all those things. You just look around for the camera. I'm sure everybody does it who comes here. And Patrick turned to me and he said, "This is going to be an experience, Mark. I think we might need a bit of this." And he reached into his coat and he brought out a small flask of brandy. And he was my friend for life from that point onwards. He was an absolutely lovely man. I should say that. I mean, one of the great joys of doing conventions is you meet your old friends. I mean, there are people here in the audience who I've met over the years, but it is also lovely to meet other actors from Doctor Who, and actors who weren't necessarily in it with you. I had an email from Fraser Hines, who was of course in it with Patrick Troughton, just a few days ago saying, "Hi Mark, what are you doing? Where are you?" You know? And it's a really strange little club, Doctor Who. We do all get on very well together. Yeah.
Asking after that, are there any people besides Fraser Hines that you do keep up with?
Are there any people I keep up with? Well, I keep up with quite a lot of them through. I have actually just done a convention in Swansea, which was the first one I've done in the UK for many, many years again. And that was with Nicholas Courtney. I've seen Nick over the years a lot. Nick and I are great friends. Sophie was there. Sylvester was there. I've seen Sylvester quite a lot over the years through other acting jobs. Who else have I got? I mean, I keep up with Sarah Sutton, you know, Christmas cards and things like that. Occasionally have rung Janet. Peter, I see a lot, and mostly we see each other at Big Finish recordings for some reason. And those are quite interesting. It's sort of trying to become Turlo again. I sort of have to go young. You know, I have to go up there a bit, rather than growling down there. But as soon as I start acting with Peter, it's actually very easy. But what happens at those things is you do about 3 days, 2 to 3 days of recordings, and if it's in London, I'm usually on a bicycle because I find it the easiest way to get around London. And Peter usually travels on the tube. I don't know how the other people seem to drive there, but we're the only two who don't seem to. And we're always the scruffiest. I've always got my shorts on and some jeans. He's always got jeans and t-shirt on, and they never ever remind Peter and I that they're going to take a photo. Right? So we turn up the morning they're going to take a photo. Everybody else suddenly is really smart, and they haven't reminded Peter and I, and we're always, in all those Big Finish photos, you always Peter and I looking like a couple of tramps, and everybody else looking rather nice. So yeah, we sort of do keep up with people. Yeah. Yeah, over here. Yeah, I'll come over there in a minute.
Looking back on your days on Doctor Who, do you have an episode that you love the most or hate the most?
Do I have an episode I love the most or hate the most in Doctor Who? I hated doing the last. Well, I loved doing the last. It's really the first and the last. I loved doing the first episode because I don't know whether you know this. When you do, it's not quite the same these days. But 20 years ago, when you did television, you had no rehearsal at all for the film element of it. So anything shot not in a set, in the studio at the BBC, you had no rehearsal for. So just imagine this, I've got the job of Turlo in Doctor Who, and I turn up on location, and I have to be Turlo. I've had no rehearsal. It's quite weird. So you have to sort of, okay, I'd had meetings with John, and I had meetings with the script editor, Eric Saywood, but we just come up with a character, and the character had been written. Then it was up to me to do it. And the first scene I had to do was as this public school boy. Now, you probably can't tell, but I'm not posh. Hugh Grant's posh, I'm not, okay? If that helps you at all. But my voice is quite a flat English voice. So anybody who knows anything about English voices would know that I sort of come from absolute middle class, normal, educated middle class. I don't come from a privileged background. So I was having to act to be this public school boy. And so we did the first take, and John sort of motioned to me to come over, John Nathan Turner. He said, Mark, it's not important, he said, but can you talk a bit posher? And I said, well, John, that's about as posh as it gets for me. And he said, oh, well, that's all right then, we'll stick with that, you know? And that's how Turner sort of came about. Turner was really me in many ways. But it was a huge thrill. You know, how many jobs do you turn up? You get to drive a vintage car around really, really fast. If you have a look at that scene, it's quite interesting. You have to drive cars faster on television than in real life to make them look as if they're going fast. Otherwise, it looks as if they're going really slowly. So when I'm in that vintage car and there's this chap next to me, right? And he's frightened about me going fast. He really is frightened about me going fast. Because I'm trying to think of my lines, and I'm trying to drive this double decushing huge monster of a vintage car about 80 miles an hour down the road, and the suspension wasn't very great either. So that was my first episode. My last episode, I think John Nathan Turner had been on holiday to Lanzarote. They were set on the island of Lanzarote, which is in the Canary Islands. And it is a weird place. It's totally volcanic. There's very little grows there except tomato and tobacco, which was more or less what we had to eat most of the time. I'm not joking. Both Peter, myself, and Nicola, we worked very hard on that shoot, and we were all quite ill by the time we got back to London. And I think it was vitamin deficiency. It was not great, the food on Lanzarote. But it was foreign filming. Greatly overrated is all I can say. It looked, that sea that I had to dive into, it looked lovely. It was absolutely freezing cold. And there is a lovely story about that. If you remember the episode, I did have to rescue Nicola from the sea. And, well, one, I had to leap into this freezing cold sea. Two, they didn't tell the Germans on the nudist beach just round the corner that we were filming. So, the first time we had a go at it, Nicola's out at sea screaming, help, help, help. By the time I get to her, there's two Germans who have run along the rocks, lacerating their feet, stark naked, dived into the water. My knowledge of German is limited to noch ein Bier bitte, which means can I have another beer, please? That wasn't going to help me out of this situation, I knew. So, you know, I'm having to go filming, you know, and it was just a nightmare. Meanwhile, Nicola's got two naked Germans all over her. I can't tell you what her reaction was. But eventually we got her to do another take. And yeah, the next take was fine, but then you see me coming towards the beach and having to lift Nicola out. Now Nicola is a gorgeous, lovely girl who I absolutely adore and think is wonderful, but she ain't light, right? She's well built. John Nathan Turner had found this beach. I don't think anybody had actually been in the water on this beach. It was incredibly rocky. It was almost impossible to walk out, and not only was it was extremely painful. So when you see me stumbling out of the waves on that occasion, it's not just because I'm challenged by carrying Nicola. It's essentially I'm having a bit of trouble keeping to my feet, and I'm sure there are lots of takes where I just fell over backwards. So that was that one. So first and last episodes, yeah. Yes. They are happy memories. I only have happy memories of Doctor Who, actually. Partly because I work with a great team. Peter, Janet, Sarah, Nicola, I couldn't have asked for nicer people to work with. And John Nathan Turner. He's one of those people who I think people either love or hate, but I can tell you he was a brilliant producer to work with. He was just inspiring. He ran a very, very happy team. And when you're working as hard as we were, that's a tribute to any producer. We had to work basically 12 days on, 2 days off, and that's quite hard in terms of the amount of hours we're working. And in the studios, we'd have to be in sort of 7 in the morning and not finish until 11 at night. So it was quite long hours when I was in Doctor Who. Another question. Yeah? Oh, yeah, sorry, I've had your hand up for ages. I shall wander over.
I was wondering what the public reaction was at the time to your character, because not only were you one of the few male assistants, you were also, your storyline wasn't like, yes, I want to be with the doctor, because you had a different plot line than most other companions.
Yeah, public stuff, yes. Well, of course there had been another male companion quite soon before I came in. They'd had Adric. But Adric was, I think, sort of the opposite to my character. My character was brought in as very strong. So basically what John was trying to do was, when you had Adric, Nissa and Tegan in the TARDIS, it was impossible. You were writing a crowd scene. Nobody could have a real part. He didn't want to go back to just having a doctor and one female assistant. He wanted to try and do something different. And so he thought he'd bring in another character, a character that had a brain. And if you remember, I also even had my own spacecraft. So this was quite unusual. When I was brought in, there were the usual reactions. I think I did one series of topless photographs. I don't think I'd have done them these days, but, you know. I probably look better now than I did then, I have to say. So there was that reaction. Why was I brought in? I think it did work when I had a major part to play, but I don't think it even worked when, after the first 8 episodes. I mean, what used to happen to Turner? Turner, basically, after the first few episodes, just used to run off and get locked up by somebody, and then he'd sort of potter around and have a couple of scenes in episodes 2 and 3, and then he'd heroically break out and rejoin the TARDIS in episode 4. I can't see how you can make Doctor Who work except only with the Doctor and a female assistant. Because once you got the Doctor, once you got a female assistant, once you've got your baddies, you haven't got room for anything else. That you cannot have another plot in there. It gets too complicated. And I realised that, which is, before anybody asked me, why I resigned. Because I did actually resign as Turner, because as an actor, I was enjoying being on Doctor Who, but I mean, if the truth be told, you know, the villain has a great part, the Doctor has a great part, and everybody else fills in. And that essentially is it. And you don't even get your turn in Doctor Who, because the format won't let you get your turn. It's not like being in a soap opera, where your character, they rest characters and bring in other characters. You can't do that as the Doctor Who's assistant. You've always got to be the assistant. You're limited by that. So it's difficult for an actor. Another thing that's difficult for an actor on Doctor Who is it's not real acting. It's much, much more difficult. I'll try and explain that. And the easiest way of explaining it is, if you think life is about green slimy monsters called the Merker chasing you down corridors, you know, you need to go and see somebody for some help. Because it is not about that. It's a pretense. But it's a massive pretense. But at that moment, when the Merker is running towards you on the corridor, if you don't believe the Merker is going to kill you, then you're dead as an actor. So it's comic strip acting. I can't emote. I can't, like I would if I was acting with a human. I can't start having a relationship with the Merker, right, or whatever the monster is. I just suddenly have to be frightened of it, and I have to act that. That is incredibly difficult to do. And another example I give is you walk into a studio, and you know, on a soap opera or whatever, there's a set, there's something real, there's something to get hold of. You can react off what other people are saying to you. You can do it in a Shakespearean play. That's what we spend years as actors learning what to do. It's how to feel other people's emotions and give them back emotions, and that's when the real electricity starts firing for an actor. But if you walk into a studio and there's a circle on the ground and the production manager says to you, "Okay, Mark, now I want you to lie in the circle, and I want you to pretend you're being sucked out of a spacecraft, and I want you to scream, 'Tractators, Tractators, Tractators.'" Now, it's really, really difficult. I mean, I'll do it for you, because I don't mind doing it. But it's weird to even, as an actor, I'll do it first, and then I'll tell you what you have to do as an actor. It's nice.
There's my son. I have to get on the floor. I have to pretend I'm in some kind of spacecraft. I have to pretend I'm really, really frightened of these animals. So here we go.
Even then, it took me like 4 or 5 seconds to get anywhere near being able to do it. Right? So one of the things you have to learn as an actor is you must have absolutely no self-respect. You cannot be embarrassed about life because you are being asked to emotionally take your clothes off. And in Doctor Who, it is painful because you're having to do that instantly like that with absolutely no help from any other actor. And it gets exhausting. and you want some help. You want to go back to that acting where you have support and help. But I think if anybody who does a good performance on something like, I think science fiction is I don't think it's as hard. Perhaps all science fiction is, because it isn't the real world. I think it's probably one of the hardest genres to do a good performance in. So, tribute to anybody who does a good performance in science fiction. Another question. One in which I don't have to be so energetic. Yes.
Do you have any stories about doing the George C. Scott Christmas Carol?
Do I have any stories about doing the George C. Scott Christmas Carol film? And look, well, it was amazing to do a film. In those days, English actors didn't do films. The film industry had completely died. And so it was really rare to do a film. There is one extremely strange story to do with it, which is that my father had recently stopped being a musician and had just started working for, he was an organist, a church cathedral organist. He'd just recently given that up and just started working for the National Trust, looking after their properties as a property manager. And he took over this place called Attingham Park, just outside Shrewsbury, near the Welsh borders. And then I got, about 2 weeks after he got the job of looking after this huge property, I got the job on A Christmas Carol. And it was filmed in the grounds of Attingham Park in Shrewsbury. And I was able to stay with my parents in this wonderful house and just walk down and go filming in the morning. And that was just a weird coincidence. It's, you know, George is a fantastic actor. I've got a huge amount of time for him. I think it was a culture shock for George working with English actors. It was like an all-star English cast, and yet we don't have stars in England. We're sort of all just the same. And the way that actors are treated, the way that I think he expects to be treated on the set is very different to English actors. So there was a slight cultural thing there, because we were all jolly and all together and all absolutely on time for every call, and then George would turn up 5 minutes late and we were not happy about it. And that words had to be said at some point about that, I think. But that was just a culture problem, I think. I think stars do that. I can't remember who it was that said they were working with some famous, somebody will be able to tell me, but some English actors, they were working with on, I think it was one of the Batman movies or something. I think it was Jack Nicholson or something. But anyway, he throws an absolute fit about the colour of his cushions in his Winnebago, right? I think it was Jack Nicholson, right? And this English actor thinks, what a prat. You know, what an absolute prat. It's only acting, you know. And then Jack comes up to him, sort of about a day later, and he says, I'm so sorry about that thing with the cushions, but you have to do that day one when you're on a US film. He said, otherwise you just don't get treated with respect. He said, really, terribly sorry. So, you know, it's nothing to do with the actors. Maybe it's just a different world they're working in, where they maybe have to do these things. I don't know, I've never worked in America, but maybe that's it. But the thought, George had a personal assistant, and he used to go back to his Winnebago and sort of watch the baseball and have a massage at lunchtime. And, you know, we English actors, we just sit around and have a cup of tea and a sandwich. just a bit different. But he's a lovely guy. He was really, really nice to me. And I think if you've seen the film, he gives a fabulous performance. He's brilliant in it. So, yes. Any more questions? Dish the dirt on any more actors, sure. Actors are usually really nice people, actually. You don't get very far as an actor if you're not a nice person. Because again, goes back to that fact, what I was talking about, that you do actually have to work with other people very closely. And you have to understand people. Otherwise, you're never going to give a good performance. So you do find actors are usually very sympathetic people. I miss my acting friends, actually. I like animals, but they're not quite the same. So, yes. Do I like to do a lot of stage work? No, I absolutely hate it. And I shouldn't say that as an actor. I mean, I don't mind it. One of the jobs I did just before I left the UK was a huge tour of Ibsen's Ghosts. It's a massive part for a young man. You're on stage for over 3 hours, and the last act of the stage is just you with your mother. You die a horrible, painful death of hereditary syphilis. It's a cheerful little tale. I used to look out the curtain some nights when I was on tour on this, and I used to think, well, look, I know you want to be entertained, but does it have to be me? And I don't think it's only, I actually quite like acting on stage, but I don't like doing it in the evening. I've got a lot of energy in the daytime, but I'm not really a nighttime person, and I like to go to bed about 9:30. Normally read a book or something, and so I just don't like getting up at night. It really destroys the day. You can't concentrate all day because you're thinking about the night. Then you have to get on stage, and then you're all hyped up at 10:30 at night, and so you don't get to sleep till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because you've got all this adrenaline going through you. And then it starts over again the next day. You wake up and think, oh gosh, I mustn't have a drink because I'm going to go on stage tonight, and all that sort of thing. I think you've got to really love the applause. You've got to get a huge kick out of that. And some actors do. Some actors absolutely love being on stage. I'll just tell you a funny thing, actually, about the job I do at the moment, which is, making documentaries. It's one of the disappointments of the job is I never see my films with other people, really, unless it's at a festival or something. I send them off into the ether. And I hope that I change the way people think about the world, or make them care about something, or whatever, that I never actually have that experience. It's a very lonely life, the edit room. Television, interestingly enough, in the documentary field, is not a group activity. All those names that come up at the end, it's usually one person who's made the film. So usually on anything I'm involved with, I made it. But all those executive producers you see on the end of it, I mean, they might have seen the film once. Sometimes they won't even have seen the film. So it's this lonely world where you write it, you edit it with one person, you go out with a cameraman and a sound guy, sure, then you come back, but you're just on your own. I spent hours and hours and hours watching television on my own, watching tapes and that sort of thing. And it's the great thing about acting is you get a response. And that's what I think actors must love who love being on stage, is getting that instant response. Another wonderful thing about acting, which I really, really miss, is that at the moment the director says action, you haven't got everything in your life goes out the window. It is the most freeing experience. Maybe it's like meditation. I'm not being very good at meditation either. But all your worries of your life just disappear until the moment you stop acting again. And that is just fabulous, and I really miss that release. I sort of can sometimes find it through physical exercise, but that's about the only thing these days, yeah.
When was that, and did you always want to be here?
Why did I decide to become an actor? I've been chucked off of that, I've been chucked off now. I didn't really decide to be an actor. I came from a background where my father was a musician. He wrote music for the Royal Shakespeare Theatre. I was born and brought up being surrounded by actors. I was born and brought up in Stratford-upon-Avon, went to the same school as Shakespeare, studied in the same rooms as Shakespeare. It was just my local school. It's just the local town school. So it wasn't a weird thing to become an actor. Having said that, there's only one other guy from the school who's become an actor, and that's Tim Pickett-Smith, who starred in Jewel in the Crown. Do you know him? He was at school about 7 or 8 years before me because I sang at his wedding as a boy chorister. He was a Doctor Who, wasn't he? He was in Unit, wasn't he? Yeah, he was. Yeah. Yeah, there's a gentleman behind you nodding, and I am amazed that I remember that. I've just given myself a huge gold star. Nobody else will. My first ever appearance was actually, I was almost nude apart from a strategically placed fur coat. Should you ever see a very, very bad film of A Midsummer Night's Dream, which was directed by Peter Horn and starred Judi Dench and Ian Richardson, then you'll see me as one of the fairies, and I sing a song in it, and I've got completely green and pointy ears, a bit like Spock. That was my first appearance. And then I sort of drifted. I was going to be a musician. My instrument was the French horn. And then I joined the National Youth Theatre, and I wrote the music for them. And quite simply, I'm about to tell you why I became an actor. Because writing the music for the National Youth Theatre was really, really hard work. And the actors didn't seem to me to have to work as hard, and they got laid much more. So I decided I would be an actor because you got the girls and you didn't have to work hard. And if only it had been like that. Lovely to see you. I'm being told to get off the stage. I'll see you all over the weekend. Thanks for having me.
One more time for Mr. Mark Strickson of Doctor Who.
We'll bring them out right now. So, starting off with our first contestant. Are you ready back there? Okay, we have Stuart Johnson. He is Ergo from Stargate SG-1, originally played by Dom DeLuise. His costume was handmade, totally original, completely made by himself. He recently won an original tunic on eBay. Stuart Johnson from Stargate SG-1. Thank you. Do we have any music, Mr. DJ? No. Okay. Next up, we have Rachel Wright. Rachel. Leela from Doctor Who. A lovely costume. A member of the 17, if I recall. Leela was a warrior who kept the Tom Baker Doctor on his toes. He may be around here somewhere. We'll have to find him. Thank you, Rachel. Awesome costume. Okay, next up we have Rach Wyman. Rach. We have a special guest today, all the way from Cardiff, Lord Mayor Margaret Blaine. Margaret, your zip appears to be undone. Please don't eat us.
Well, there were 10 contestants, we're down to 6.
She scares me. Thank you, Rach, aka Margaret. Astudine from Doctor Who, from Series 1, Margaret Blaine. And next up, we have Jen Giorno as Kaylee from Firefly. You should recognize her. Give it up for Jen, come on. Thank you, Jen. Very authentic. And next we have Andy Steinberg, a Dark Lord of Cthulhu from H.P. Lovecraft. Where is Cthulhu? Everywhere. Hell. Thank you, Andy. All right, and finally, we have Mr. Doug Rothkopf. It looks like we found the fourth Doctor and his faithful sidekick, K9, which was made by Doug, I might add. K9 is suffering from power fluctuation issues, so the Doctor is helping him along today. Give it up for Doug in his fourth Doctor outfit. Where are you going, Doug? All right, so that's not it. Apparently, this is Deanna, Troy, and Riker waltzing. Maybe they'll perform the Pomfar also. A little Beta Z courtship ritual, apparently. Thank you, Deanna and Riker. But which Riker is it? Is it Tom or Will? We'll never know. All right, we had an impromptu extra people for the costume. We will be judging the costumes, and we will be back in a few minutes. Thank you for your attention and your love for the costumes. Thank you. Okay, thank you for your patience, everybody. We have the judges' decisions, and I'm going to hand it over to my wonderful friend, Jennifer.
Thank you guys for waiting. We had some tough decisions to make, but we're going to start. We're going to give out 3 prizes today, and the first one we decided for best presentation, our Slitheen, Rachel Wyman. We like the fact that she had a presentation, which is nice, always appreciated. And there's all sorts of cool little details on this costume that she put together herself, which are also fun. Her zipper glows, for instance. Which is a little hard to see from off stage, but get up close, seriously. Her zipper glows, that's great. Okay, so then next. Best costume is Leela. She made this costume herself. And we appreciated that. The boots are store-bought, but that's not the important part of the costume. The important part are the Leela bits. And she made those all herself. And finally, another wonderful, wonderful costume. We decided K9 and his faithful companion, Doctor. Best prop. He and his grandfather made this whole thing themselves. Ask him to tell you what all the parts are. It's great. We're going to try to bring K9 up, but we don't want to use too much of Linda Blair's time. But seriously, look at it and ask what all the parts are. He's a companion dog. It's okay.
He's a tin dog.
There are parts on this thing from Tupperware, from phones. This is a car antenna. The inside of the body has got all sorts of funky stuff in it. This is a pipe. It's really neat. They put together so many cool little things into this. Look at it closely. He talks about it well. And the ears are closed hangers, he told me so. Thank you guys for waiting.
And I would just like to add, even though it was a small contest this year, 99% of the costumes were well made, and I encourage everyone that entered this year to enter again next year. I also want more entries. It makes our life even easier. And I also want to thank my right hand, Miss Jennifer Pellin, or is it left hand? She's a writer. So you guys enjoy the con, and I hope to see you next year.
Raising hands, that's easy. That light's bright. Who has a question? Who wants to go first? Yeah. Would I? Only if the food gets better. Yeah, I gotta eat well. I gotta eat good. I don't know. Space travel? I think it's for some people, and it's just not for some people, and I think that would probably totally terrify me. Be interesting, but no, not for me. Anybody else? Space travel related questions? Yes? What do you remember most from your role on Space Cases? I remember the wig. I remember squeezing all of my hair into that wig every single morning. I had really, really long blonde hair then, and I also remember having a really, really fun time and being with a bunch of people around my age and just kind of goofing off and having a totally atypical life as a 12-year-old and, you know, being able to star on a TV show. It was really fun. And Peter David's really nice, too.
When did you know you wanted to become a professional actor? Like, were you in like high school drama clubs and stuff like that? Or?
No, I started in the business when I was 5, so this is my 19th year in the industry. And all I ever really wanted to do was go shopping when I was a kid. And my mom said, well, if you want new outfits, you have to earn some money. So, you know, what do you want to do? And I was totally happy doing commercials and whatever else, and just kind of fell into it that way. And then shortly thereafter, I started doing TV movies and TV series and films, and yeah, I just never gave it up. I really enjoy it. It's really fun, and yeah, just kind of fell into it, luckily. Anybody else? Yeah, hi.
What's like working on 6 Feet Under and the Reaper connection?
Oh, you're talking about Dead Like Me? I wish I was on 6 Feet Under. Thanks for rubbing that in. I'm joking, I'm giving you a hard time. Yeah, that was interesting. It's definitely not a typical day at work. It was weird. I didn't know anyone, and everybody had their own groove going on, and the cast was really close, and I had all this makeup on and these weird patent leather clothes, and all of a sudden I was in a closet with this total stranger having to, you know, act like I was up against a wall having sex. My dad didn't enjoy watching that. It was fun, but I kind of wish that I had got to play a better role, a bigger role, a recurring role. That was a really good show. Yeah. There's not much I can say about Stargate. They kind of have the whole thing under lock and key. I do know that I'm playing a doctor, and yeah, another doctor on the show, but you know, a young, very young kind of prodigy sort of doctor, and that's all I can really say. Sorry, have to watch and see. Start airing? I'm not really sure. I start work in March, so I assume it would be July or midsummer or something like that. Yeah. Any other questions? Wow, there's all of a sudden all these questions on this side of the room. Hello. Yeah.
On Firefly, who do you think you had the best on-screen chemistry when you were doing a scene that you think you worked best with?
I think Nathan. Nathan and I had a really good bond, and we were really, really close. So I always really liked working with him, and I love watching the scenes between him and Kaylee.
Did they call you back because the first time you went on Stargate Atlantis you had the makeup? They wanted to bring you back, or did you have to read the new role?
They actually suggested bringing me back as the Wraith. And I said, no. I just didn't enjoy that makeup process. And I really liked working on the show, and the cast were super great, and the hours are great. I mean, it's job from heaven. And I said, I'd love to come back if, you write me in as somebody who actually looks like me. And so they did. They wrote me a character. Yeah.
Is it a recurring role? Is it a full-time role, or is it recurring for like say 6 episodes?
It's gonna start out with just a few episodes. I mean, I could say that it's reoccurring, but yeah. That's all I'm gonna say about that. You're trying to trick me. Yeah. The Tribe is this action movie that I did in Costa Rica and on a soundstage in LA, and they're pitching it like this. It's Lost meets Predator meets Alien, and I'm the Ripley. I'm really excited, because nobody ever really gives me that kind of stuff. I don't get to do a lot of the really fun, action sequences, and I was always watching Summer going, I want to do that. So finally, I got to kick some serious ass, and I'm really excited. So maybe next year sometime, maybe the fall. We don't have an exact release date yet, but yeah, watch for that. And I think there's a website floating around too with a trailer on it that just came out. Anybody else? Yeah. It's been a few years. It just all depended on the year, I think, and how I was looking at that moment. I remember there were some years, like when I was 9 or 10 years old, I was booking work constantly because, I had a certain look that everybody really wanted, and then I kind of went through a couple years where I wasn't, when I had the headgear and the retainer. Truthfully, sucked. And then, I don't know, I just got really lucky. I got really lucky. Oh, not really. I had an agent, and they would call and say, hey, we have this audition. Do you think she wants to do it? And they always give me a choice. And my parents always said, if you don't want to do this, you just say the word, and you can, be whatever you want to be and do something else. But I always really enjoyed it. It's fun. It's so much fun. And the money's really good. And you get to work with really good-looking guys all the time, so... I kind of forget he's here sometimes. Oh, God. Yeah. Yeah, I had a lot of trouble, especially in the beginning. We did this episode, you probably know it, where we find the ghost ship, the Reaver ship, and I had this long spiel to do when I was being interrogated by the Alliance, and that was awful. And I got that the night before. They just wrote it in. Tim Minear was like, hey, look how clever I am. Here you go. And I'm like, thanks a lot, Tim. So memorizing that and getting it right on the day was really difficult for me. But I found after a little while, it got easier and easier with the technobabble stuff, and it just kind of came to me a little bit more. And now that I'm doing this doctor stuff, it's a whole different ballgame. I'm like back to square one. It's like Dr. Babble now. I hope I'm relatively convincing. Yeah.
On a related note, do you remember any of the Chinese that you had to learn?
Shura. That's easy. That's the only one I know. Nathan can... Hello? Is it working? Yay! I figured it out. I am an engineer. See? I know. What was the question again? Oh, the Chinese stuff? Yeah. I was gonna say Nathan can spout,
No.
Hello? Yay! That could have gone on for a long time. Anyway, next question. Anyone? Wow. Yes?
How did filming Firefly compare contrast to filming Serenity?
I would say that we were way less stressed out filming the movie, just because we weren't worried about being canceled all the time. And also, we had a lot more time to just kind of, spend all day doing one scene. And on the series, with television work, you're always really, really pressed for time. And 10 pages in one day, and on the movie we could do 2 or 3 pages and call it a day. And we also had a lot more money, which was nice. We had really nice lunches every day. And filming on the Universal lot was really fun because we got to go ride the rides whenever we had a break. Yeah.
Is there any talk of a sequel? Any rumors?
Oh, there's talk of it. Yeah, definitely. We were all signed for 3. And we were all very happy to do 3 movies. But I think that's still up in the air. And Joss's whole world right now is Wonder Woman. And he has to get that done. He's late in finishing writing it. And, he keeps sending me these weird emails with, those questionnaires that people, like, what's your favorite color? And, if you were a car, what kind of car would you be? And he writes his own. And he sends them like way too often, and I'm like, what? You're not writing that script, are you, Joss? I don't know what he's doing in that office of his, but yeah, lots of emails from Joss that are totally un-Wonder Woman related. Except one of the questions was, help me out, who do you think should play Wonder Woman? And I'm sure every single girl was like, me! I actually said Gina, to my credit, but I think she'd be hot as Wonder Woman. She's got my vote. Yeah?
No one has room to argue that Serenity was a fantastic film. But did you guys have a sense that you had been in Yale and you really had it, or were you totally clueless that it got to the screen?
I don't know. I remember really loving the script the first time I read it, but I don't think any of us really cared whether people were going to love it or not. We were all just really happy doing it and working together again, and also having closure. A sense of closure was what was most important, and I think that's all anybody ever really wanted. And the fact that people loved it, that's just kind of a bonus. Yeah, we're very proud of it. Maybe I should go to this. Oh yeah, you can leave that there.
Can you tell us how you got your part on Firefly?
Sure. I was considered for a role on Buffy a long time ago, and I don't even know what the role was, but I heard that Joss was considering me for it. And I guess he remembered me, because when Firefly came along, I got the audition sides, sent to my agent, and put it on tape. He'd asked to have me put it on tape. And 2 weeks later, I got a call, and they said, Joss wants to have lunch with you. So they flew me down to LA, and we hung out, and we talked a lot about the character and the project and all that, and it just sort of fell into place. Yeah, he said that when he met me, he knew that I was Kaylee, which is really nice of him to say. He could be lying, but it's a really nice thing to say. Anyway, anybody else? In the back, yeah.
What do you like to read, and what do you watch on TV or movies?
I read pretty much everything, fiction mostly, and television. I'm a big Lost junkie. Yeah. Maddie, plug your ears. Matthew Fox and I belong together. On screen? Yeah, that's what I said. I also like some reality TV, I hate to say, but a lot of actors really like reality TV because sometimes you just get sick of watching other actors and you just want to watch some crap every once in a while. I'll admit it. Everybody's like, oh, I hate reality TV. They're lying. Those actors are lying to you. Trust me, especially American Idol. Anyway, yeah. I will say this, I really liked Rebecca. She was perfectly nice. She was only there for 2 days, and then I think it was just a thing where it wasn't meant to be. And then all of a sudden, Morena came in, and we were all really shocked that this girl was out and a new girl was in. And then as soon as Morena walked on set in the dress and started acting out as Inara, we were all just like, oh, we get it. Alan did? Were they X-rated? Oh, that. Alan was a little bit more honest than me, is what you're saying. Ron wouldn't say a thing? Yeah, Alan had probably had a couple beers. I think he does that before Q&As, which makes him, all the more entertaining. Yeah.
Being a star of a certified cult fit, are you concerned that your life might turn into Galaxy Quest?
Oh my God. Some days it does feel a little Galaxy Questy, yes. No, I don't think so. I get asked a lot if I'm worried about being pigeonholed, but what's wrong with being pigeonholed as Kaylee? Not much. Another question? Yeah.
Can you talk all about your Wonderfalls experience in that character? Because she was so opposite of Kaylee.
Yeah, she was pretty opposite of Kaylee. Yeah, that was fun. It was very cold. We shot that series in Toronto in the middle of winter, and I was in itty bitty little high heels in the middle of the snow. The hours were really, really, really long, and I kind of felt sorry for Caroline, the star, because she was there every single day for every hour of those days, and she did an amazing job, and she's the nicest girl. Yeah, playing an evil bitch is really fun. It's just this great release. It's I don't know. It's easy to get off on that. Yeah. Yeah.
You said you really like to eat and you really need to be able to have good meals, but you don't look like you eat anything.
Oh, I eat.
And you look like that. How hard must it have been to become Kaylee?
It was really hard, actually. It was. It was really fun for the first 2 weeks. And then after that, I was so sick of eating. I mean, it was constant. And they had a box of donuts on the craft service table, and Joss was always like, eat a donut. And I'm like, fuck you, Joss. It's amazing how quickly you get sick of donuts and cheeseburgers and all the yummy things in life. If you have to do it every day, it's just kind of like, ugh, you feel tired. And I really like to work out, and I like to do yoga, and I wasn't doing any of that, so I just felt really sluggish and got over it really fast. And to me, it didn't make that much of a difference. I mean, I went up a couple sizes, but all my pants still fit and everything else, and I didn't know what the big deal was, why I was contractually obligated to have this weight on. So as soon as the show was over, I went back to my regular, exercise habits and stopped when I was full. And then the movie came along, and I was like, oh, damn it, he's gonna make me do it again. And he was like, you know what, it's not like I'm going to recast you, so do what you want to do. And I was like, thanks, Joss. Yeah. I love Rachel. She's awesome.
She was just, everyone here loved her last year. She was just so warm. We've discovered toward the light that one of her hidden talents was she's a tremendous singer. What are your...
I heard that, yeah.
She had a number for us. No music, no prep. We just read about her.
You guys are horrible. You forced her into singing a cappella for you? Oh my God.
She was fantastic. Most actors have a few other little things that they can do if you're stuck in a cabaret or whatever. What are some of your hidden?
I don't like to brag, but I'm a pretty good cook. My cannelloni can kick some ass. Yeah, and I love to cook. So I would probably say that. And I also really like to write. I used to do a lot of writing in high school, and I had a 98% average in English, and I just love to write. So maybe, hopefully, one day I'll get the time to sit down and write a book. Yeah.
Do you do any stage work, like live theater?
I used to. When I was little, I did a lot of stage, but there's something about the medium of film and television that I really like. It's really intimate. I love being able to do take after take of the same thing sometimes and just kind of try different ways of doing it. It's so totally different from the stage that, I never say never, so, maybe one day I'll do a play or something like that, or even a musical, that'd be fun. Yeah, I just really like film and TV better. Every actor has their preference, I think. Yeah. You ask good questions. I'm going to keep picking you.
Can you talk at all about the character of Casey from Higher Ground?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know Higher Ground. I did this show called Higher Ground for Fox Family, and I played this delinquent, but she was very, very intelligent, and she was kind of a goth, and she was sort of depressing, but she also had this mystical side to her and read tarot cards and things, and I had such a blast doing that show. I loved that character. And every time I catch it on TV, I really don't like to watch myself at all because I get judgmental and second-guess things, and that's not healthy. But whenever I catch Higher Ground, I always watch it, and I always feel really proud of it. And the cast was great, and Hayden Christensen was on that show with me, and yeah, it was a really fun time. It was a nice thing to do when you were 16. Starring on TV shows is fun. Yeah.
If you guys had an option for 3 films for Firefly, why did 2 of the characters get killed off?
Not telling. Next question. There's always flashbacks. We have to hear about Book's story. There's so much you don't know. Anara's story, Anara's story is my favorite, but I won't tell you why. Yeah. In the Bo Peep dress? How many outtakes were there? I don't know about outtakes. All I know is that it was really hard to pee. And I just started telling this story. I don't really know why, but I figure what the hell, it's been a few years. You might as well know. I peed on that dress once. The hoop had to come off every time I had to go to the bathroom, and then I would gather all the ruffles up in my arm and fit myself into a stall and try to pee without actually peeing on the dress, and little did I know some of it was not held up in my arms. And what can you do? Luckily, it was the second to last day, so yeah, I call it the pee dress. It wasn't very fun to wear. It looked great, really wasn't very fun. And actually, that sequence where Badger comes on board with his guys and kind of holds us hostage till Mal comes back, Joss thought it would be really funny if I was still in the dress. And I was like, yeah, no. Give me my overalls back. I'll do anything for my overalls. So that's why I still have the hair and makeup, but I'm back in my overalls, even though it doesn't really make much sense. I fought for it and I won. You don't win a lot of things with Joss, so this was a big victory for me. Yeah.
What is Joss like to work for? And were you a little intimidated when you first came on the Firefly workforce?
I had never seen Buffy or Angel before I met Joss. I didn't know enough about him to be nervous, which is probably a really good thing. Joss is very honest. He's very specific in what he wants from an actor. And I always say that it's almost like he views a scene like a comic book, like beat by beat by beat by beat, which I find really helpful. I like to please the director, and, that's part of an actor's job, and a lot of actors go against the director and fight it, and I really respect Joss, and he's very smart, and I trust him. So I didn't mind respecting what he wanted me to do. He's also very self-deprecating. He's very affectionate, and he's really real. He's very honest, really real kind of guy. Yeah.
A lot of child actors who have grown up and had difficulty because they lost their childhood acting. How have you dealt with it and been able to be normal?
Am I normal? Thank you. I think. I don't know. I've never really understood actors that have complained about missing out on certain things from their childhood, because to me, I'm really proud of everything I've done. And I really like me. And I think that all of those experiences have just made me who I am. And, you know, I quite like myself. Having said that, there was a couple birthday parties and, you know, silly things like school dances that I couldn't do because I was filming, and I would kind of whine about it, and my mom would go, if you want to quit, quit. You know, if you want to go to the birthday party instead of getting mouth to mouth by David Duchovny in the X-Files, then go right ahead. My mom has a very good way of putting things in perspective. She never let me, you know, get down about missing out on silly things like that, and she always just kind of taught me to, you know, be proud of it and work hard, and if I'm unhappy, to do something about it. And when I really looked at the situation, I never really was unhappy, and I always really loved what I was doing.
She doesn't do drugs. That keeps you normal.
I don't do drugs? That keeps me normal? Yeah, that's true, baby. That's true. That's true, yeah. My mom had me under lock and key. I was not allowed to go that route at all. Anybody? Yeah.
Were there any really bad practical jokes on the set, and did you ever have one pulled on you?
There's this guy named Nathan who will not let up on a joke. This is the kind of guy that plays the same joke every day until you don't think it's funny anymore, but he's laughing hysterically and rolling around on the floor. He was our on-set practical joker for sure. There's kind of a bit of cruelty in his joking around. Like, he put lotion underneath the handle of my dressing room door, which is up a very steep flight of stairs. Yeah, I mean, there's only 4 stairs, but that could do some damage. And I went to pull open the door and slipped and fell off the stairs, and he was like howling. He was laughing hysterically. I was like, you are a sick man. But, you know, having said that, when you're really tired at the end of the day and, you know, it's your 14th hour on set and he's still in that same mood, it's so helpful because he would just crack us up and he would always make us laugh. And, you know, laughter's good, especially when you're tired and you kind of want to go home.
And your revenge?
My revenge?
Well, you can't let a good practical joke without revenge.
Yeah, that's true. He started fingering me on set, like, not that way. Whoa, 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 whoa! Whoa! God, you guys are sick. Anyway, let me put it this way. He started giving me the middle finger. I don't know why. It's one of those weird things he would do, and, you know, he'd be like, Jewel, Jewel. So it turned into this little game, and he would make up different ways of giving me the finger. I'm sure you guys have heard this story. No. You're lying. Okay. You know, he would show me a magic trick, and he would go like this and put a scarf over his hand and abracadabra and whip out the scarf. And like the wind up finger, and then I was kind of like, okay, Nathan, oh my God. And he came up to me one day, I think it was probably near Christmas, probably near the end, and he gave me this beautiful handmade box that he made himself, this butterfly on the front, this little jewelry box, and he said, I just want to give you this and be sincere and say that I really love you and I really love working with you, and gave me this amazing speech, and I really should have known. But gullible me, I'm like, wow, thank you so much, Nathan, that's really sweet. And he had the box in the palm of his hand, and I opened up the box and he cut a hole in the bottom and put his finger in. So then, I was staying at his house with my husband for a couple weeks, and it was Valentine's Day, and we went and got a card, a Valentine's Day card, and I wrote this really weird, spooky kind of fangirl poem in it, saying, like, scary, like, if I don't have you, I'm gonna die kind of thing. And stuck it in his mailbox so he thought the person knew where he lived. Oh yeah, baby. And he got freaked out, and he was like, oh my God, this is serious. No, guys, this is serious, oh my God. And his girlfriend was standing there watching him, you know, open this card, and I had tucked a mini envelope inside, sealed, and when he opened it, it was just a picture of me going like this. Not bad, right? Not bad. So, he still has that framed, sitting on his mantle. He thought that was hilarious. So then, we filmed Serenity, obviously, and we were at the wrap party, and the editorial staff had made us this really amazing, wonderful blooper reel. And the whole cast and crew from the movie were standing around watching it and, you know, having a good time laughing, and it says, thanks so much from the editorial staff. And then all of a sudden, it says, for Jewel. And up pops a Caleb doll from Buffy, Nathan's character on Buffy, and goes like this. So then, I wasn't gonna let that slide. So then, we go to Dragon Con. You guys been to Dragon Con? Anybody? Okay, so huge crowds. We do this Q&A in front of a ridiculous amount of people, like 2,000 people or something. And I got Peter David, who was there, to help me out with this. And he made up a flyer and passed it around to the crowd before the Q&A began that said, you know, when I give you the cue, everybody stand up and give Nathan the finger. So we're up doing this Q&A, and Adam was with us too. And Nathan really likes to kind of control the Q&A, like which I don't mind, whatever. He's the captain, whatever. But he really likes to get up and go, hey guys, thanks for coming anyway. Okay, how about you? And just sort of, you know, and then we answer the questions or whatever. And like the first man he points to is Peter David. It was perfect. And Peter goes, Nathan, on behalf of Jewel, we salute you. And the whole crowd stood up and gave him the finger. And he was stunned. He just stood there like this. And then he looked at me and was like, that's fucked up. And that was the end of that feud. Every once in a while, I get a little scared that he's gonna show up somewhere in a crowd and retaliate against me. But I'm also hoping that that's over. Yeah. I think I answered that lady's question, but I'll answer it again. It's okay. If you came late, I'll answer it again. I think I said something like it was really embarrassing and a little weird, and I was very uncomfortable, and sex scenes are not that fun. Even if they look fun and you're with somebody who's really cute and everything else, it's so awkward. And the whole crew's around, and, you know, I mean, even just kissing Sean in Serenity was really difficult. No, it wasn't. But we did over 25 takes. We did. And Sean was like, are you paying Joss for this? And I was like, no, of course not. But it was also really weird because Sean and I developed this really close bond, but more of a brother-sister kind of bond. And I love Sean. He's great. He's awesome. And every time we do a convention together, we're like glued at the hip and we have a really good time. But actually having to kiss him was really weird. And we kept giggling. And Joss was like, can you make this more romantic? Like, what are you doing? I want to see some chemistry. I want to see some sparks. And we were like snickering, which is probably why we had to do so many takes. Yeah, anyway. Yeah.
Have you been lucky enough that all your good work has ended up in front of an audience, or have you done some things where you put all your heart and soul and ended up on a cutting room floor?
I've done some smaller parts where I had a lot more in the final, or, you know, in the previous cut than I did in the final cut, which, you know, it's just what happens. What can you do? It's meant to be, and if it makes the film better, then whatever. I've been lucky that pretty much everything I've done has been out there and has been broadcast. A lot of things I've done have been canceled. I don't know what that means, but hopefully that little curse is over. Yeah, so I think I've been lucky in that respect. I know actors that are not lucky and have been completely cut out of movies, and that kind of sucks. If you're totally 100% cut out, it's not very nice. Yeah.
Between doing commercials as a child and doing US TV, the only thing I know of that I've seen that you've done was Da Vinci's Inquest, which I really enjoyed. They just showed it this last year on US TV.
Yeah, that was a good show. I was really proud of that. That was fun. I did a Disney show called Flash Forward. Yeah, it was on the Disney Channel. And I did Space Cases, obviously. And then I did the TV version of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And I played a very Heidi-esque character. Fun, fun, fun. It was good. Her name was Tiara, and she was a total diva. And what else? I did a lot of Canadian stuff. I did a show called Cold Squad, and a lot of TV movies. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what season. I've never seen it. I've never been able to catch it, but it's out there somewhere. Hopefully I'll get to see it one day. But yeah, I've been relatively fortunate. I've been able to work enough to, you know, never have to have another kind of job, and been able to totally support myself with acting and buy a house and all that stuff. So, you know, I'm happy. I don't need to be a huge megastar or anything like that. I'm perfectly fine being the way I am. Yeah. Very different. They're very different people. Summer, we call her Summer Glum, because she's kind of fragile, and she's very soft-spoken, and kind of needs protecting. She cries really, really easily. Yeah, she's really sweet. She's just really fragile, and we're always, you know, be careful around Summer. I remember this one day on set. She hates that I tell this story, but I don't care. She was really tired, I guess. And this was on Firefly, and she had a bagel in her hand, and we're standing there talking at the craft service table, and she's like, I'm so tired. I can't, I haven't been sleeping very well. And I'm like, I'm sorry, Summer. And she's like slowly sawing through her bagel with this flimsy little plastic knife and cut into her hand and was like, I just cut myself. Summer, you need a nap. She's the kind of person that never makes a mistake, which is really infuriating. Like, she never misses a line. She's usually, you know, she's always on time. She's always with it. She's just like this amazing actress, and she's hardly had any training at all. So we always make fun of her for that, and blame all of our mistakes on her. And the going gag on set, anytime you do anything, well, not even on set, we do it now still. You know, you drop a pencil and you're like, Summer. Or, you know, anything happens, you trip and fall, God, Summer. And she totally takes it. She just stands there and she's like, she never fights back. We're horrible. Adam is very intense. He's very, very sweet, and he's kind of the father figure on the set. He's nothing like Jane. Nothing. He's soft-spoken. He's very gentle. He's just absolutely nothing like Jane. He has 3 really great kids, and just has this kind of fatherly thing going on. He's got really great advice. But as an actor, he's in character so much of the time. I don't know what's going on. I mean, he really likes to role play, and he'll, come up in the middle of the day and be like, so, and like do this Jane thing, and I'm like, what are you doing? I'm not gonna have a conversation with you like this, man. You're weirding me out. But that's what makes him so brilliant. He has all of these ideas about Jane and who he is and what he likes to do, and a lot of the time the props that he carries, it's his idea. When he was eating the apple with the knife, and I don't know, all kinds of things that he's done have just been these really, really brilliant ideas. And even when he doesn't have any lines, he's always doing something. He's smart, so the camera cuts back to him, because you're like, what's Jane doing in the back there? So he gets lots of camera time, and he's really smart about it. But I really admire him, and I love to watch him work, and I don't know, I always thought he was one of the strongest actors on the show. Plus, he's a really nice guy.
Ron Glass was on one of the great comedies of all time, Barney Miller. That intimidated you all working with him? With that iconic
I didn't know who Ron was either. I didn't know who Joss was. I didn't know who Ron was. I didn't know who Sean was, but I was like, I don't care. He's cute. That's just like, oh, lady. I just, when I met Ron, he comes across as very serious and, very strong kind of presence in the room. But once I got to know Ron, I realized that wasn't true at all. He's got a really sarcastic sense of humor. He's hilarious. I mean, he's so funny, and he's so mean to Morena. He loves to be mean to Morena. I don't know why. But she would come on set in these beautiful dresses, and Morena doesn't really wear a lot of dresses. She wears jeans and t-shirts. She's kind of a tomboy. She doesn't wear a lot of makeup. And she's gorgeous anyway. Hate her. But, she was always kind of uncomfortable in the dress and would come on and be like, this is what I have to wear today. And Ron would be like, what is this, a carnival? She'd be like, Ron? But I always thought it was hilarious. We like to pick on each other, it's fun. Yeah. There's lots of things I've auditioned for that I've never gotten. I go on maybe, if it's a busy time of the year, I go on maybe 3 auditions a week. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it works out, and then we get into the deal-making process, and the deal's just not right for me, or, sometimes what they're doing with the role and where they're going for it isn't right for me. So, I mean, it's not all the time that I don't get it, but there's a lot of things I've auditioned for that I really wanted. Have you guys seen The Prestige? Yeah, so I auditioned for Scarlett Johansson's role. I wanted that. God, I wanted it so bad, because the script read so good, and I loved the character, and then they just turned around and gave it to Scarlett. But that's okay. I'm not bitter. It's fine. Yeah. Well, and Morena has also done some SG-1 lately, and yeah, as the evil queen. I want her to come over. I think that would be really fun. Yeah, it would, definitely. I don't know if they're going to bring Adam's character back or what. I have no idea what they're doing. I don't even know who I am yet. It's going to be an interesting year next year. Anybody else? Yeah?
I know it's probably be impossible to pick a favorite. I know personally it's terrible to see where you get shot in Serenity.
I love that scene.
I thought it was incredible.
That worked out really well.
A scene or two that were your favorite, or scenes you really enjoyed shooting. First, just watching it
I really liked Out of Gas as a whole. I thought there was some really amazing scenes in there, and I thought Nathan knocked it out of the park. He was awesome. I'm also a really big fan of Janestown. One of my all-time favorite scenes is when Alan, or Wash, is drunk. talking to Zoe, you know, the scene that I'm talking about, he comes back to the ship and he's just totally obliterated. I love that scene. That's a scene that I could watch all the time. Alan plays the best drunk I've ever seen. Yeah.
Given the premise of Stargate, where they go, go through gates and things, if you ever had the opportunity to travel to another planet knowing you may not ever return,
You really want me to space travel, don't you? To another planet? What planet? Anyone? I don't know.
they basically they pick these plant, the symbols at random and say, okay, this is going to E38.
Yeah, the food might suck, exactly. I don't know. I like this one. I'm happy here. I'll stay right here. Yeah. Really? Wow, that's nice. That's really nice. I guess I should listen to the commentary. Wow, sweet. The boss likes me. Awesome. Yeah.
One of my favorite relationships was between you and Lenora. Having it is where you wanted to go or, talk.
I like that relationship too. She's, if anybody can't hear, she's talking about the relationship between Kaylee and Inara. For me, there was always something a little bit sexual about that relationship. They do a lot of flirting with each other, I think. Kaylee flirts with everybody, but yeah, Inara doesn't, so maybe she's got a little crush, something. I really loved working with Marina, and we got really, really close, really fast, and she was actually the maid of honor at my wedding. Yeah. Yeah, she gave a really nice speech too, and then ended it with, and by the way, Jules not wearing any underwear. In front of my brand new in-laws. Thanks. Thanks, Marina.
How was the bachelorette party?
We actually didn't really have a bachelorette party. We got married in Maui, and the whole thing was kind of a party. I mean, it was just, yeah. I didn't really want to, we didn't do anything too specific. It was very casual kind of affair. We were barefoot on the beach at sunset, and Nathan was the best man. Yeah, it was like a little Firefly wedding. But yeah, anyway, Marina's really, really great, and I love her. Don't tell her I said that. Yeah.
Did Ron Harris wear a wig, or was that really his hair?
That is really his hair. Yeah, Ron. Yeah, he's got some crazy hair going on. I really dug the cornrows though for Serenity. I thought that was pretty hot. Yeah, but yeah, he's got a crazy head of hair. Anybody else? Yeah.
Any thoughts on maybe having a lot of the previous Joss actors get cameos in Wonder Woman? He seems to recycle actors.
That'd be nice. Yeah, we all want to be in Wonder Woman. Nathan wants to be Wonder Woman. I'm not kidding. And what? He has the legs of a dancer. But yeah, we've all been kind of, nudging Joss and going, hey, buddy, I'm available. Always available for you, pal. And, I've said, what can I be her, her sidekick? Can I do that? And he was like, you know what? You are my first choice if Morgan Freeman says no. I'd like that. But I don't really look like much of an Amazon. I would be anything, except, craft service. You had one, right? Yeah? I've always wanted to do a really, really good comedy. I really like to do comedy a lot. It's a little bit difficult, and I really like the challenge of it. I'm getting one of these. So one more question, and then I'm apparently very dramatic. Yeah, I don't know. I'd love to do a period piece. I'd love to do lots of things. I said I'd love to do the action hero kind of thing, and then I did the tribe, and not so much. That's not fun. It's hell. I have scars all up and down my legs from it, and it was not a fun shoot. Yeah, last question. I always hate picking the last question because it's a lot of pressure. Anybody who hasn't asked a question yet? Yes, you, yeah.
When you were shooting Firefly, when did you kind of figure out that the show might get canceled?
I would say that, well, we kind of knew that we weren't getting a lot of love from the people upstairs because we didn't get a launch party. And I didn't know they were throwing launch parties for shows until I was driving down Sunset, and this show called Fastlane had a humongous launch party with lights and a red carpet and cars parked outside, and I was like, is that, oh my God, oh. And we didn't get a lot of visits from upstairs, and it's not really a good sign. So we always felt the pressure of maybe not, necessarily making it, which was not very fun. It wasn't a good thing. And then when they pulled the plug, none of us were really that surprised. It was sad. Thanks for ending it on such a sad note. God. I'm joking. Thank you so much, guys, for having me. Appreciate it. Thanks for being so good to me.
One more time for Kaylee. Dual state, ladies and gentlemen.